Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here to give a post-fight talk on John Pascal's victory over my pick, Bad Chad Dawson. Now, I was out last night. You could probably still hear it in my voice. And I was shocked to learn that John Pascal had beaten Chad Dawson, who, quite frankly, as longtime viewers of my videos know, I consider to be the best in boxing. I think any conversation of Chad Dawson should include the other fighters who are at the top of the sport. And when I look at Chad Dawson versus, let's say, a Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao, Dawson is much taller for his weight class than both of those guys. Dawson is a southpaw, unlike Mayweather, and Dawson has a defensive shell and fights the kind of counter-punching technical game that I think skill-wise gives him the edge over Manny Pacquiao. Now, I'm just saying that just to give you my perspective. Keep in mind, all of our perspectives are correct for us. I'm just trying to tell you the bias I had going into this fight. So I fully expected Chad Dawson, even in Montreal, to handle Jean Pascal, who is one of the more courageous fighters in the sport. We talk about fighters who don't duck fights, who take the hard fights. Vander Holyfield, Juan Manuel Marquez come to mind. Well, just consider that before this fight, Jean Pascal went to the United Kingdom to fight an undefeated Carl Froch for the Super Middleweight Championship. This was right before the current Super 6 tournament. He follows that up just 2 fights later by fighting unbeaten light heavyweight champion Adrian Diacanu in Canada. Then, of course, he follows that up by beating Diacanu in the rematch. Then he takes on unbeaten Chad Dawson, who was favored in this fight by quite a wide margin and was widely viewed as one of the very best in boxing. Floyd Mayweather calls Chad Dawson the best pure boxer in the sport. And so Pascal is a guy who's not afraid to take on unbeaten fighters. He has a lot of heart. Of course, those of you who've read my book know that I believe boxing is mathematical. It's not about heart at the top level. And so while Pascal has a lot of heart, I thought the determining factor in this fight was going to be the differing skill levels. Now, I've just watched the fight. There is a little bit of controversy on the fight. Some people had it close. The judges had it very far apart. I think the best way to solve that individually for each of us is to have each of us watch the fight. I sat down. I was very stunned at the outcome, as I expected Dawson to win it. So I sat down, took notes, which I'm going to be referring to during this, and I'm going to tell you my scoring on the fight round by round. Some of my scoring differs from Harold Letterman's scoring. He was HBO's ringside judge. Now keep in mind, this is a fight where I picked Chad Dawson to win the fight. I gave the first round to Jean Pascal. I gave the second round to Jean Pascal. Letterman disagreed with me. Letterman gave the second round to Chad Dawson. I gave the third round to Jean Pascal. I gave the fourth round to Bad Chad Dawson. Letterman gave the fourth round to Jean Pascal. I gave the fifth round to Bad Chad Dawson. Letterman gave the fifth round to Jean Pascal. I gave the sixth round to Bad Chad Dawson. I gave the seventh round to Jean Pascal. I gave the eighth round to Jean Pascal. The ninth round is going to be something we talk about for a while. Dawson came out, looked great. I gave the ninth round to Jean Pascal. Dawson did not maintain it. I thought that Dawson faded in the round. I thought that Pascal, just based on energy, won that ninth round. I gave the 10th round to Jean Pascal. Now, in the 11th round, Chad Dawson did have Pascal in serious trouble. Then the fight got stopped. Dawson was winning the 11th round. But understand that that means that I gave 7 rounds to Jean Pascal. I only gave, if you include the 11th round, I gave the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 11th round to Chad Dawson. I had Jean Pascal winning this fight comfortably. This is a fight where I had picked Chad Dawson to win the fight. Let me just make a few points. I think Jean Pascal fought a much smarter fight than Chad Dawson. Let me just say that, Chad Dawson is actually a right-handed fighter fighting as a southpaw fighter. It's a converted stance. Now, just like Sugar Ray Leonard did to converted southpaw Marvin Hagler, you're going to see that in this fight, Pascal fights a very scientific, in fact, it's a brilliant fight. He's able to get under Chad Dawson's dominant lead right hand throughout the fight. It's clear that he does not respect the power in Dawson's left, and I believe that's the secret to the fight, in addition to the fact that Pascal hits hard, didn't waste a lot of time throwing jabs. He's jumping in with hooks, and of course he stayed outside, which is against conventional wisdom when you're fighting a guy who is more than 2 inches taller than you. Pascal did not try to smother Dawson. Rather, Pascal tried to stay outside on Dawson, tried to walk Dawson around the ring, not walk him down, but walk him around the ring to take Dawson out of his defensive shell. Then he was able to come inside, and he was able to go under Dawson's jab, right? And keep in mind, Dawson's throwing the jab with his dominant hand, so it's a punch you need to be aware of. And, of course, Pascal, and I thought this was brilliant. Since Dawson is excellent defensively, what Pascal would do is he would mix the attack. In other words, he would throw a combination, and the combination would be an up-down combination or a down-up combination. He would shoot to the body, then he would go up top, or he would start up top, then he would drop to the body. So Dawson would literally have his hands down wherever the attack was. Dawson's gifted defensively, but while Dawson was guarding his body, Pascal would then, in the middle of the combination, go up top and hit Dawson when Dawson was not protecting himself. Now, let me also say, too, that Dawson, we talk about what Dawson could have done. Because Dawson is inverted, Dawson should have, when Pascal kept coming inside, Dawson should have hit him with not a check left hook, which is what Floyd Mayweather hit an over-aggressive Ricky Hatton with. Rather, since Dawson's fighting southpaw, it would be a check right hook, and it would be devastating because, of course, Dawson is actually right-hand dominant fighting southpaw, right? Curiously enough, Dawson didn't seem to do that early on. I did think that if Dawson had kept the rhythm he established in rounds 4, 5, and 6, he could have gone on to dominate the fight. The problem, of course, is Dawson had a big-time problem. We talk about foot speed. Dawson had a big-time problem dealing with Pascal's movement, and Dawson, like Floyd Mayweather, fights out of a defensive shell. It's just not in his nature to throw caution to the wind, to step forward, and then to push the action. He is a counterpuncher. He is reactionary. He's not proactive. And so I thought that that was interesting. Let me also say this, too. At the end of the second round, Eddie Mustafa says to him, you need to double and triple up on the jab. Now, I was a bit bewildered that Dawson, who has one of the best jabs in the sport, didn't try to double and triple up on the jab. Now, during the action, HBO reported that Dawson said to his corner that he had some shoulder problems. I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that, in fact, no, I'm not. Before you send me an avalanche of email let's just say that I'm pretty certain, just looking at how the fighters fought, that Dawson's shoulder problems had to do with his right shoulder, had to do with his jab hand, because Dawson, for some odd reason, wasn't throwing jabs in this fight. I believe he got outthought. I believe he got outworked. I'm a bit surprised because I was expecting this to be a coronation for Chad Dawson, not a defeat. I think you also need to look at the bigger implications of a fight like this. This fight could easily have been a fighter who fights out of a defensive shell, Floyd Mayweather, against a fighter who can fight outside and can come inside with quick flurries, who's a little bit more unstructured, a fighter like Manny Pacquiao. I like Mayweather against Pacquiao, but if Pacquiao's going to win that fight, then the script would be similar to this one. Now, there is a rematch clause, and let me just say that I expect Dawson to exercise that rematch clause, because I believe Dawson, if he looks at the film, will realize that he could have won this fight. But he didn't win the fight. He didn't come close to winning the fight. On my scorecard, I had Jean Pascal 7 rounds to 4 rounds to Chad Dawson. Pascal took the fight. I had predicted Dawson. I congratulate Pascal supporters. All I could say with Chad Dawson is he needs to shoot the jab more, and he needs to prepare check punches for when Jean Pascal comes inside. He also might want to be proactive on Pascal rather than sit back and wait for Pascal to come inside. He might want to pursue Pascal, because let's think about the Ricky Hatton Floyd Mayweather fight for a second. Mayweather, who is reactionary, counterpuncher, just like Chad Dawson, knew that Ricky Hatton was going to come inside on him, right? So Floyd Mayweather didn't have to go looking for Hatton. Pascal, who outthought Chad Dawson, brilliant fight by Pascal, was a little bit more devious than Ricky Hatton. What Pascal did was Pascal actually forced Chad Dawson to come toward him. Dawson, the counterpuncher, needs to do that earlier, not later. We shouldn't be waiting until the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds to see Chad Dawson come forward, right? Let me also say, too, that, of course, while Pascal forces Dawson to come forward to him, Pascal then jumps in. Because Pascal's not throwing a jab as a rangefinder, it was obvious that Dawson had a very hard time judging distance in this match. And so he was outthought. The question I throw out for all of you is whether Jean Pascal's style was the kind of style that can win a surprise fight, or whether it's the kind of style that can be duplicated in a rematch. Let me also say, too, for hardcore gamblers, Chad Dawson is still an elite fighter. I still personally believe he's at the top of the game. If Chad Dawson decides to fight somebody else, and if his shoulder is healthy, I think that Chad Dawson would take that fight, because Dawson is a guy who, quite frankly, has very advanced skills. But he was outthought and he was beat in Canada. All I can say is if someone's going to beat Chad Dawson, they have to do what Pascal did, and that's pretty much see through Dawson's southpaw stance and time Dawson to the point where you're able to routinely get under Dawson's lead jab off his dominant hand. Dawson needs to throw more check punches. He needs to figure out exactly how to make Pascal pay for diving inside the way Pascal did. So to sum up, let me also say, too, Emmanuel Stewart, who had a masterful performance, I agreed with all of his comments, toward the end of the 6th round, I believe, said that Dawson was in a position to take control of the fight. I think the key round in this fight is the 7th round, because it broke Dawson's momentum. Pascal was fighting a very tiring fight where he's moving all over the ring. It was a little bit surprising that he got a second win in the 7th round, and that Dawson didn't have the common sense to step it up in the 7th round to keep the trend